You know that scene in Toy Story where Woody gets all scuffed up and the old man brings him into his little shop and fixes him up? That really goes full circle for me anyways. Okay. Hey, so I wanted to make a video about how I made my stop motion puppet from start to finish. I had seen a lot of random parts of how to make a stop motion puppet, but not like a full-length video on the entire making of. So I just wanted to do a little preface. So this is the first one that I've ever made. So a lot of the stuff that I did was trial and error, but it worked out in the end. There's a lot of stuff that I would do differently, and there's a lot of people that I asked questions and like followed blogs on certain aspects, so I'll make sure to link those as well, just so that everybody has the same resources and that we can credit everybody. But yeah, without further ado, I hope this is slightly informative. If you have any questions, you can ask me and I will try to answer them as best as I can. Yeah, cool, thanks, bye. So I actually bought my armature online just because making your own is really tricky. So I got a ball joint armature and then I wrapped Teflon tape around it and then sculpted onto it with Chivant clay. So then I'm gonna go into molding it just because sculpting is pretty self-explanatory. So I did a 2-part mold and then I added keys to it. If you need more information on 2-part molds, I can go into detail, but this is essentially how you do it. So now that your mold is clean, you're going to want to take all of the Chivant clay off of the armature. So you're just left with the armature with the Teflon tape on it, and then you're going to want to pour your silicone. So basically you layer silicone both sides, put your armature in, and then sandwich them together. And then you use baby powder to take it out just so that it doesn't stick to itself, because silicone only sticks to silicone. And then for the body, you essentially do the same thing. You do a 2-part mold, and then I use silicone for the body as well. You layer the silicone inside, you put the armature in, and then you sandwich it together. One thing I want to mention is be wary that your sculpt is not too thin. I had issues with this. So just be careful. Once the body's done, I moved on to the legs. For the legs, I actually used creamer tape, which is like a sports pre-wrap tape. Just helps bulk them out. So for the face, you're gonna wanna create a holder for the eyes, and then you wanna sculpt around that. So I used Epoxy Sculpt. I followed a really good blog that I'll post below, and then essentially you create a shell and then you build on top of that, and then you cut them in half, because I'm doing a forehead and a mouthpiece. You build a little spout at the bottom, and then you mold them. I used tinsel, that's what this is. And then you wanna make sure when you're sculpting the initial sculpt that you want to leave enough space around the lips so that you can create more facial expressions. So for the facial expressions, I used first Bake and Bond, and then I used Super Sculpey on top of that just so that it would stick properly. I was worried because for the faces I used Smoothcast 300, which is a type of resin. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to bake them, but I ended up being able to use a heat gun on them, which was really efficient. I just had to go over them a couple times just to make sure that they cured properly. The other thing with the faceplates that I had to do was add magnets to it, just so that they could snap into place. Tacky wax also works well for that. I then moved on to painting. Just making sure that I'm lining up all of the pieces together to make sure that everything is super cohesive. So for the eyes, what I did was I ended up taking round beads that we already had, drilling into them, painting them, and then filling them up with 5-minute epoxy with a pin that was coated in Vaseline so that you could take it out and still be able to animate them. The hair, I used jute wire and stuck it into a wig cap I made with Elmer's glue because I wanted the hair to still be able to be animated. So the clothes I made by patterning, so basically just draping the fabric onto the stop motion puppet, cutting away and marking out what would make more sense as far as making it fit better, and then sewing up the scrap fabric to see how it fits, and then transferring that pattern onto the actual fabric that I wanted to use. Also, I'd say leave enough space in your hem so that you can actually put wire through it, because for stop motion animation, it's really helpful when you can also animate the clothes. For the boots, I used the masking tape method where you wrap around the foot to create a pattern. That's how I made my boots. So that's how I finished my stop motion animation puppet. She's based off of Sloan, aka the Raven from the Adventure Zone. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I will post my Instagram and my website in the link below.